Just take a look at all this fruit. Seems like I was talking recently about the fruit trees in Tallinn just growing wherever with the hackleberries, apples and cornelian cherries, I think they were. And here I'm assuming these are little black currants. My goodness. I'm surprised nobody's been along here and picked them. But of course, maybe they're not black currants, and if you pick them and try to eat them, you end up in hospital or a straight trip to the one-way ticket to the cemetery. So just as well I don't go off too much at a tangent and decide to put my ideas into practice. Like mushrooms. You know, you meet people sometimes when you're travelling and they say they live off mushrooms that they find in the forest when the season's right. And even met a couple of girls from Czech Republic a good number of years ago in Lithuania. They were hitchhiking and eating so many mushrooms, they said, finding mushrooms in the forests along the way through Europe and preparing them in the hostel where they would be staying. Anyway, that's another story for another time, because we're still in Haapsalu and we've come round to what appears to be a main entrance to Haapsalu Castle, which has got some very useful and helpful pieces of information and a great big closed sign over the top of it all. So should I even bother getting closer to show you what those times of the month and operating hours are? I don't know if I should, but if you come here in the spring or early autumn even, you're going to be disappointed. That's disappointed because you can't get into the museum, but not disappointed when it's a reasonably mild sunny day like this and camera's hating the sun, but still better than rain, that's for sure. You still get clear access to the ruined castle itself, which means, you know, I'm not complaining. I was making all the excuses about why I'm not prepared to pay to go into the museum here. And really, I didn't need to. Because the place is closed in any case. Okay, we come back just to here. I see. I'm trying to picture what it's like for music concerts in here. I know last year there was Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds apparently performed here. And I don't know where the stage was. Wasn't here myself. But yeah, just trying to picture where the people would be, where the stage would be, how the acoustics would work best. Now then, we got something interesting here about a ghost story, which you may have heard of. Haapsalu isn't only one of the probably dozen towns that I've been to in the north of Europe, which has a claim to being the Venice of the North. My goodness. Travel around Northern Europe for a good length of time and yeah, you just think, another one. But this place also has the White Lady's ghost. Legend has it that the White Lady was in love with a man who had already betrothed himself to God. A man of religion who entered the chapel here, the cathedral, in its service of the Bishop of Riga perhaps, and the lady decided to follow him but came to a grisly end. And legend has it that I believe, depending, I've seen more than one source on this, it's either every full moon in August or the last full moon in August. I can't imagine there are too many full moons in August. Her ghostly apparition can be seen conveniently for us using this signpost here. They are actually pointing to a place where you can view the Half Moon Towers viewing platform, which may or may not be the same, because that says half moon, doesn't it? So I've got my moons mixed up. So the window of the White Lady, yeah, this is where she is probably seen, is over there. Whether the platform, which offers you the best view at half moon, where you just see her half dressed, or the top or bottom half of her, I'm not sure, is up this way. That would kind of make sense, actually, in a stupid sort of way, because if she can be seen over there at a window, for example, or up there at a window, the tower behind, then maybe, just maybe, the best place to see it is down there. Got a couple of cannons in place, oddly facing inward rather than outward. I'm not sure what that's trying to convey. Perhaps betrayal during the Livonian War. The castle, the bishop, they were betrayed from within. Or maybe not, because I haven't read anything about the details of the Livonian War and betrayals. Another figment of my over-imagination, I suppose. This doesn't look like a viewing platform, does it? I'm thinking that's a viewing platform, maybe over there. And then you can look up here and see a ghostly apparition. Or a makeshift projector slide of a lady dressed in white. But only in August. And maybe only on the day of the last full moon in August. So I wouldn't book your holiday specifically with the intention of guaranteeing that you can see a ghost in Haapsalu's castle. But you never know. They might put something special on as a treat if there is a concert in August this year, next year, the year after. If the concert scene is back in full motion again. I mentioned Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds had a concert here last year, and so did, well, not here actually, but Rammstein, one of the bigger European acts, if you like heavy industrial metal, and who doesn't, let's face it. Yes, they had a successful concert in Tallinn, even though many other headline performers weren't able to tour because of the lingering COVID issues, insurance, and in the case of UK artists, apparently after Brexit, when that finally went through, that left UK performers in a bit of a pickle because of visas and the like. No longer free to travel willy-nilly going around Europe. Looking over here, there's a guy who I took for Napoleon, but I don't think it is Napoleon. No, he's not Napoleon. And this is a monument, I believe, which is a reminder of the Special Estonian Regiment, which was formed at the end of the First World War, towards the end of the First World War, when I think the Russian Empire was crumbling, getting desperate, around about 1917-ish, and the Tsar was about to abdicate, and willingly or unwillingly, a regiment of Estonian troops was formed. I'm guessing rather a lot of them perished, sadly, with the names listed here. One of those situations which must have occurred and reoccurred through history, where an occupied peoples are faced with volunteering to fight for an occupying country. So that's what my guess was about that memorial, and you won't be surprised to hear I'm a bit off, but only by a year or three. The memorial column is dedicated to the War of Independence, Estonians fighting for their own independence between 1918 and 1920. It was officially opened on the 9th of November 1924. Oh, it was blown up in 1941 by Soviet Russian occupiers. It's reinstated in 1994. Restored by sculptor and conservator in 2017. Okay, so these are the guys who fell fighting for Estonia to get independence in the upheaval after the First World War. Estonia managed to get that independence for a sadly brief time. The year before, in 1917, I believe it was, another regiment existed which was fighting on the side of the Russian occupiers against Germany. Yeah, maybe there's a memorial to those guys. Or maybe some of those guys who survived ended up a year later being able to actually fight for what they wanted to fight for, their own independence. I really should stop trying to piece together pieces I know to come up with a conclusion, which I then am humiliated to find is out slightly by a year when I see the reverse side of a plaque or the reverse side of a memorial column. This place has got museum written all over it, hasn't it? Got the bust of a famous Estonian man there. 2 homes. Yes. Dva doma. Zwei Häuser. Okay, sort of a museum featuring domestic interiors of yesteryear, I would imagine. Not tempted, if I'm honest. But of course I'm tempted by these little critters over here. Who are they? What are they? Mystery things. I don't know what this is, if it's a school. Iloni Imedima. Strange fruit, vegetable characters. Very nice. Now, where am I going here? It looks as though inevitably I see the water. I think I'm going to head down here because I had in mind that I wanted to visit an observation tower which may or may not permit me access to climb the staircase to the very top, from where I should be able to see a rather nice panoramic view of the water out there in the distance, and perhaps, if I'm lucky, if it's high enough, a panoramic view back into the centre of the town, to include, of course, those castle ruins. I might get lucky, or I might not. Here we're passing Jaani Kirik. Which sounds suspiciously like St. John's Church, doesn't it? I don't know if it's worth noting, but the Estonian word for church is kirik. The old Scottish Gaelic, is it Gaelic? The old Scottish word for church is a kirk, I believe. Scandinavian language connection, maybe. Now I'm here in person, I can see that actually this tower isn't so high as I was hoping. Still quite high, I guess. Here we can pinpoint it. There's the castle, and we've come from down here at the railway station. And here, this tower, as I say, isn't so high, and its purpose is rather specifically for bird watching. I'm not a bird watcher, but if there are birds around, I do tend to watch them, if that makes any sense. I don't go out of my way, I don't carry binoculars, and my purpose in climbing the tower today won't be to view any bird life, but if I see anything, it will be nice. I seriously doubt I will see much because of my own short-sightedness. However, I do want to satisfy my curiosity and climb these stairs just to see what kind of panorama view is on offer. And then, I don't want to say, I'm doing this for you. Sounds lame, doesn't it? But it will be nice to know, for anybody who's curious, whether it is worthwhile making the effort to climb these stairs in order to see not much at all, really. Children's playground. There's St John's Church over there, which we had a better view of before. Around here we're facing the sun, and here are the wetlands. And if you've got binoculars, maybe on a nice day like this, it really is worth climbing up here. Oh, that was nice. I think it was a bright red dragonfly, maybe. It all happened so quick. I think it was a bright red dragonfly flew in front of the lens. But yes, there may be some bird life out there in the marshy reeds, which make it worth coming up here. And perhaps if you are a twitcher, a bird fancier, you already know about this place in Estonia. Maybe it's famous among bird watchers. I've got no idea. And I don't know if you can hear that crow in the background mocking me for not having any idea. I can see there are plenty of birds out there in the distance. Looks like a little boat, maybe, but yeah, I don't have glasses to aid my short-sightedness. And it is a rather attractive view. Not spectacular, but pleasant enough. And I see there's a little statue or monument. Again, my eyesight's failing me, but I'll go down there. Get to see some birds more closely as well, by the seams of things, as well as the monument. And I think if I follow this promenade walk around, I will see some nice wooden architecture and also some other interesting monuments and sculptures. Fingers crossed. Okay, I was hoping I would be able to get away with this and not take the last few stairs. I didn't get to the actual top of the tower because I was beginning to think it could induce vertigo, which I don't need. So maybe I'll I'll tell the people at home watching, yes, I've reached the top of the tower and here's the view. Well, it was the floor below. This is actually the top, and yes, if I look down at the ground, I do feel a bit dizzy. I'll tip the camera down and hopefully you won't get the same impression that I get in real life. And even looking out there, actually, I feel a little bit as though I could easily, I don't know about fall, but yeah, there's that feeling if you do suffer with vertigo from time to time. That sense of, oh my God, yes, I could fall if you look down. I won't tempt fate by staying up here for too much longer. But there we are. I've pushed the boundaries. I pushed myself to the limit in the creation of this video, and to show you just how high up you can observe the birds from. And it looks like we've got a few larger vessels over there in the distance. I wonder if the promenade will take me up close. Let's find out. Here they are, the birds, duckses. And I'm just imagining what this was like last winter. You can almost picture it, the water's so still here, and beyond the birds you can see the tide just rippling the surface of the sea. In the foreground, the water looks as though it's frozen, but in the winter, this water no doubt was frozen, and I can picture the birds were still on the rocks there, trying to keep their flippers from freezing. Or maybe they have the good sense to fly somewhere a little bit warmer. Set back a bit from the water's edge, from the promenade, is a dance pavilion, which again may see some toe tapping action come the high season. And over here we have St. Mary Magdalena Church. This one's about 170 years old, I believe. Whether this was a park all those years ago, I don't know. I think the place was just taking off as a salt mud bath sanatorium type health resort. And perhaps there was an influx of visitors, and this fine building was constructed, and parks needed to be developed as well as dance pavilions, because wealthy folk from far afield would come for their treatments. And I can't help wondering, actually, in the early 20th century, if perhaps the haemophiliac son of the Tsar came here for treatments as well. Perhaps that's what made it an attractive destination for the Romanov family before the First World War, looking for cures for their boy. One can only guess. And considering we're out of season, pretty lucky to have this fine weather. It's always the same in a situation where you're at a resort town, which you know would be thriving in the peak season, but just in the shoulder season, shall we say, numbers just evaporate, and you're basically one of the only handful or less of tourists walking around the place, and everyone else is a local. There's a lot to be said for that. Prices can be lower. Very useful public toilet over there. Looks to be open. I don't need to use one at the moment, but nice to know there's one in the vicinity. Coming here in the shoulder season, if I wish to stay here in a hotel room, for example, the price would probably be absolutely slashed compared to what the peak season price would be. But if you've seen that other video about Estonian money saving tips, then you'll know where I stayed when I did stay here for a few days on a previous visit to Haapsalu. And I paid I was checking my diary, I thought it was 10 to 12 euros for my private room. It was actually 8. So you might have to pay a little bit more, but yeah, a few years later, the price still isn't likely to be anything like as high as a hotel. But I'll let you find that video for yourself if you're curious about how you can stay in Estonia for very low cost. We've got a polar bear over there. A statue of a polar bear on a pretend iceberg, I suppose, in the middle of the water. And some very fine decorated wooden villas here. Tea houses, perhaps, or mud treatment rooms. So it must cost quite a bit of money to maintain these fine buildings. And if their market is supplying services for tourists only, or predominantly tourists in the peak season, I wonder how can they make the money to make it worthwhile as a business. Perhaps it's because of going back to those high prices again in the peak season. Yeah, I've answered my own question, perhaps. Some nice detail here, isn't there? Or am I the only one who's gorging himself on the craftsman's work, which went into making this a very attractive building front? Well, building all around, actually. We've seen a fair bit of the exterior, and from every angle it looks attractive. I think a building like that is called a kursal in Estonian, which I think basically means a place where you go to hear music, dance, perhaps have tea. A tea dance hall. What about that? That might suffice. Until somebody corrects me, feel free to put what the real definition of a kursal is, and also feel free to correct me down in the comments if you know this building actually is nothing like a kursal. It's a something else. And here maybe is a better view of our friend the polar bear. Or not. No, still a bit far off for my weedy camera to pick up. It's got relaxation all over it, hasn't it, this place? You can see why it's noted for being that type of summer holiday destination. Really hard to imagine it being anything different. You know, if a group of drunks were here, an English stag group, for example, yeah, it would just be sinful, wouldn't it? But thankfully, I don't think they'd be attracted to this place. so it remains unspoiled. More fruits, perhaps. Yeah. Almost look like miniature persimmons, don't they? Oh, and there's a sign which says this is actually called Promenade. So, no mistaking the house, no mistaking the location or the walkway. And here is, I nearly said Pushkin, but it's not Pushkin. Got deceived by the profile. It's a man called Dr. K.A. Hunius. Famous man. I wonder if he lived at number 6 Promenade, that house in the background. Lucky man if he did. More honking birds, swans and ducks. And it looks as though if you do want to take a sneaky look at some birds nesting or feeding, hanging out in the reeds, there may be that little sneaky walkway to do that. Or maybe its sole purpose is for a small rowing boat, perhaps. Could imagine that maybe they have a little boat service running off from here, which takes you on a slow, gentle tour of the sea. 1 tund equals €12. Party rent, something for rent. Paddy, is that a boat? Boat rent in the peak season, maybe? Or maybe paddy means the rent of something to do with this little ice cream vendors. But no, you wouldn't be able to rent that for €12. No, I'll go with the guess that it's a boat ride. So come here in summer and try not to be disappointed if there isn't a boat for you to ride. But fear not, because over here, in this restaurant area, the outdoor restaurant area, they provide a horse for you to ride. Guy, can't make this up, can you? Right on cue. Got some lovely flowers and shrubs over there as well. Don't know what the food's like, but Von Genet's, I think it says Von Genet's hotel, restaurant, cafe restaurant by the look of it. Yeah, pretty. Oh, private, keep out. We've got surveillance cameras. Okay, I've been told. I've been warned off that place. What on earth is that? Maybe when we walk around this way, we'll get a better view of what's over that away, behind the reeds. Bit tricky to see.